Howdy fellow skeptics, Lester again, the Skeptic Tank here. Just want to let you know I actually finished ISOM 1. Pretty much enjoyed how the building blocks are being placed. There's a bit of mystery with respect to the main protagonist. I have a sense. I don't want to spoil anything because, hey, ISOM 1, get it? They're working on ISOM 2 and can't wait to get my copy, but I definitely want to read the Rippaverse effect, or ethic I should say. Here it is. Mainly because of what I covered in my most recent recording, which is in the middle of processing. It just finished uploading, now it's processing. According to YouTube, it's going to be about 40 minutes for it to be available. So without further ado, from Rippaverse themselves, this comic book company was not created at random. I have been rooted in the culture of American comic books since I was a youngster, and being a creative in the industry was always a dream of mine. But the unfortunate state of the industry gave me the push that certainly what not to do. Rippaverse Comics is the product of a comic book guy that still believes the magic of culture. With that being said, we are guided by a set of principles that remain the staple of this company. Respect the customer. We want you invested in this brand and everything that comes from it. Rippaverse Comics is not entitled to your money, and we must earn your support. It's on us as the creators to produce something that you find of value and can remain invested in. It's impossible to please everybody, but we hope there's a book or character that you look forward to keeping up with. The success of this company will be largely dictated by our ability to keep the customers interested and satisfied. We are not oblivious to this. Respect goes both ways, and we will honor our side of the deal. Canon and continuity. Going back to my previous talking point. Our aspirations extend far beyond having a couple of characters or series. A vast universe that is ever expanding is what we hope to accomplish. This is something that has long been intriguing about modern American comic books, but has become a lost art. The Rippaverse will fill this void. This means that every single book you buy will always matter. If retcons are to exist, they will only be used in the classic sense of introducing new information. You want every book that you buy to always matter. These stories happened. There will be no lazy time travel to change histories or events. There will be no cheap multiverses that have altered versions of the same character. If you own a book, you own part of the history, and it's our mission to keep it this way. This concept will remain true regardless of the medium. Should the characters appear in officialized animation or live action, the depictions need to be as accurate to the characters as realistically possible. Your favorite characters will always be recognizable. A comprehensive timeline. Because we value canon and continuity, it's important that you're able to follow the timeline as these characters grow. This will especially be helpful for those of you that become customers years after our founding. We promise to try to keep reboots to a minimum. If this means that a series is on its 100th issue or volume, so be it. But this isn't a reason to feel overwhelmed. There be plenty of opportunities to purchase anthologies that combine key stories, but we also don't want to hold your hand, as picking up the pieces is often part of the fun. Not every story will be told in chronological order, so we'll always make it as easy as possible to keep up as the universe grows. Eric July. We hope that you enjoyed ISOM number 1. Please give us your feedback wherever possible. If you're a creator, don't hesitate to let the world know how you felt about the book. Want to see those videos and hear those podcasts. Don't forget, Dokumen cards. Who's Dokumen cards? And what's on the cards? A mysterious person by the name of Dokumen has been keeping up with notable subjects. They have cards with some important information about high-profile subjects. The cards won't be around forever, so get them while you can if you want to learn more about some characters in the Rippaverse. The official concept artist book, released alongside ISOM number 1, was a book with the original concept art of prominent characters. In it, you will see the original design by Marcos Rios and a breakdown of how they were created by Eric July. So, again, not wanting to relegate this video to the realm of shorts. We'll see. I don't know what the threshold is, but to me a short is like anything below 2 minutes even. Could be wrong. But those topic points by that closing statement by Eric July are something lost, at least as far as I understand what I've witnessed within the reboots as I discussed previously. It's just, you gotta have that continuity to start. Otherwise everything will become disjointed. What I'm seeing with ISOM number 1, at the very least, like I said, building those blocks, where we're being introduced to a specific set of characters and players, and given the youth of the product, I like how that's being built, and that way it only piques my curiosity even more. What's going to come of the characters, the geographies? Because based on what I read, there are at least 3 locations, and anyone from Ripperverse can correct me on that. I'm more than happy to hear that. Again, not trying to get into spoilers, and there are other people that have talked about ISOM number 2. They've already gotten their copies, waiting on mine. Can't wait for it. And sooner or later, I should also wrap up Stiegling Solo, so you get my thoughts on that as well. And especially in light of what's going on with the artist strike, the entertainment strike going on, I think I've collected enough material to last me however long that strike lasts. As I talked to my older sister about her situation, she's part of a specific union, but as long as you find a non-union job, you shouldn't be out of work. If I may, I'll plug her site, which is daphnesanjose.com. Especially if you feel like there's a project that doesn't need the weight to be carried by the other tenants within the industry, you want to give her a job to do. I believe her gallery's up, as well as means of contacting her. We may not personally agree on a lot of topics these days, but I still look up to her. So if you want, look her up. But going back to Jeff's talking points, or not Jeff's, excuse me, Eric July's talking points as far as continuity. I mean, if my assessment is right, more along the same breath, but I need to address what Eric puts out there directly on the page. What he echoes is something antithetical, something rather in place of what we've seen across the entertainment landscape. I don't know, I can't speak for the entirety of the entertainment landscape, because you never know. It's usually the minorities that are I'm not saying ethnic minorities or racial minorities, but I'm talking about minority of voice can also be the loudest among a spectrum of voices. And this is why I hope, as I carve my path within this world, I know why I in the midst of life and trying to find ways to fund the habit, as it were, I would like to bring out the multitude of traditions I've been subjected to. I have a slow burning blog, and I think I plugged it, or I will, but I do have a blog out there. It's very much a slow burn of my thought process. What I've come to, at this point in my life, the diverse set of interests, and I know they always talk about jack of all trades, master of none. But if my life experience and my evaluation of that is any indication, the way I've gone about the multitude of interests is I like to say I nerd out. I like to say I deeply dive into the topic matters, whether we're talking 49ers football and so forth. And I've already mentioned my Bruce Lee world exposure, or that will be published soon enough on YouTube. But I have various touch points in my life. Yes, my church life is very important, but I'm going to try not to be a Tim Tebow of sorts probably not my charism, probably not, maybe because of some PTSD about how I was exposed to different people within that Christian, what you might call, hemisphere, that milieu. Particularly growing up as a kid, certain things that were said about me as I was raised within that Roman Catholic world, and I'm sure based on the conversations I've seen on YouTube, where a lot of the creators have their own sets of PTSD when it came to their Catholic school upbringing. Don't need to hash out who those are. If they want to, great, but you know who you are. I've had my own PTSDs with that, and so, to be honest, my faith does serve a great anchor in my life, but I think with anything, like any anchor, you can take it from the ground. Not that you'll lose yourself, but that's just not my disposition after the stuff I experienced as a kid. It still forms a part of who I am, but this is not what this channel is about. It'll weave its way within its own set of fit. That's what I want to try to do moving forward, is how do I bring it all together? And as the short description, I'm still trying to figure out if I want to use that phrasing, getting to the tip of the top of the triangle. Because I think as we get to that multitude of interests, I hope to point people to the common threads uniting them. However I intend to do that, however it looks like at the end of the day. So I want to go back to Eric July's points, being the antithesis of what we got now, what we get nowadays. And I think I mentioned it in the previous video about how historically actors weren't exactly given voices. But coming from the sports milieu, having followed on a majority level basketball, pro football, coming from those perspectives and being exposed to their degrees of meritocracy. And people can debate left and right in both contexts, both milieus, pro basketball, pro football. There are different dynamics making each unique. However, I don't get the, maybe more in basketball, but I could be wrong on that. But for the most part, if people aren't performing up to a standard, and most of the time, whether it lives up to the standard or not, that is very evident when you look at the product, whether you watch it live or you somehow catch it on a replay. Whether you watch what they call the TV copy, broadcast copy, or you watch what's called the All-22. So the product on the field or on the court, in the case of basketball, and nowadays I'm getting more into UFC, but I'm not so much into the personalities. I think growing up, I started losing my fanaticism. Now, I know people will say, well, you're not a real fan if I'm not as rabid. I like to say I'm a fan, but I'm a fan for a different reason and with a different perspective. That I can talk about the UFC on its own. That might be, it depends. That might be a separate video when I talk about UFC, because I was in a little Facebook spat with another person about his misgivings about the UFC, but that's neither here nor there. But going back to the meritocracy, the sense of ownership of one's performance, I'll be straight up and say I've been a 49ers fan for as long as I can remember. Yeah, I might have had a stint where I was a Cowboy fan because, I didn't get into the weeds. But I think after I saw the 49ers win their 5th Super Bowl during the 94-95 season, for whatever reason, I was clued into, I didn't have the strong antenna back in the day. about what made the 49ers a perennial franchise, before their dry spells. Those who want to Google that, they can, or DuckDuckGoose it, whatever they want to use as your search engine. But as far as this meritocracy, there was a statement made, and if you want to look at different outlets in the pro football world, you can look at Pat McAfee, or if you're looking at 49ers-centric coverage, Jack Hammer. He covers the Niners for a local publication. I'm going to say that, Santa Rosa Press Democrat. I think that's the name of the publication. Then you got guys like David Lombardi from The Athletic, and then people within the various Barrier Talk Radio. So 95.7 The Game, KMBR. I guess since I have no affiliation or ties, I can say those by name. It's been an interesting dynamic to watch how those two Barrier outlets, specific on their own levels, how they trade personnel. I don't know about trading personnel being the exact verbiage, but you can see people that were on one on the other and vice versa. But Deebo Samuel, one of the 49ers players, said, when he talked about last season, he said, in review of the tape, I am not going to put that on the field again. That's his personal vow for the upcoming season. You don't get that a lot from those in certain sectors of the entertainment industry. Again, going back to the vocal minority, or I like to say the noisy minority, this idea that and again, it's a minority. So at least as far as I've come in contact with the punditry, the insider baseball, or inside baseball, however you want to term it, most notable voice when it comes to downplaying the fans. Okay. Brie Larson, and I'm not a pundit on her specifically, but I've heard people who cover that more in depth, again, like WDW Pro and Jeff from WCBS, or World Class BSers. Start out with that, and then there were recent comments made out by Samuel L. Jackson. I'm sorry, to this day, sometimes I more often look back when he was in that Pulp Fiction scene. Well, he starred in Pulp Fiction, but I still think of him as the bad Emma for Wallet. Or if you want, you can take a snippet from his John Grisham movie role. I think it was A Time to Kill. And that one iconic line you get from the trailer. And he's done some other roles. I think when I was in that spell and during 2020, I'd see him in certain roles. And, he's a good actor, but we don't, the viewer doesn't need to be talked down to if I were to assess the way he made those comments when it came to that show, Secret Invasion, which I don't feel compelled to watch. I think for me, when they can't back up the product in a clear way, instead they're saying certain comments like, I deserve to X, I deserve Y. It just turns me down even more in terms of, do I even want to bother watching what they have to offer? There's a point, everyone should have a voice. Now, just because you have a voice doesn't mean that you gotta use it freely. Now, people can say, well, look at you, you're putting your voice out. Yes and no. And I would say I try to craft my words carefully. you might have observed a little bit of walking back, or at least kind of correcting myself. You know, I try to put enough preface into what I say that I may make references, but it doesn't make me, quote, expert in covering, say, like I mentioned the 49ers. I don't make any bones. I don't cover the 49ers. I may speak about something within the 49ers sphere when it's appropriate. Right now, for me, preseason, it's going to be preseason for a while, just because of my watching football over the decades, especially with the way the product has been. You know, got to work with those kinks. But you don't get that level of accountability nowadays in Hollywood. Like, they, to the credit of most pro athletes, they'll say that's a bunch of, I put out a bunch of trash. And and they, you don't get that talking down to at the expense of the fans. Even for pro contact sports, UFC for example, I don't remember any of them talking about the fans. If there was a dispute in the outcome, it'd usually be like, well, say, hey, you guys, you saw it, you be the judge. in a way of disputing what the judges called the outcome to be. Even among the commentators, and I find that a little funny. But I don't remember any time that a pro athlete would call out fans. Maybe for specific situations, but not as it relates to a quality product or lack thereof. More importantly, let me go back to that closing statement because I want to make sure I'm on point. So in case you probably noticed that I do run into a bit of a rabbit trail here and there. So let me go back to his. Canon and continuity, and well, going back to respect the customer. You know, everyone talks about voting with their wallets. And yet I know that people are talking about don't judge a book by its cover. Well, no. I'm not looking at simply the title or even the artwork that might be put on a promotional poster, for example. If the trailer doesn't compel me, then I'm sorry. The trailer does not compel me. Like, I could be wrong, and this is just something I witnessed off a recent Midnight's Edge stream. I'm trying to remember which stream it was. I have so many people I watch on YouTube. But they were discussing Gran Turismo. Now, real quick, Gran Turismo, I played that game growing up. I don't think I played any sequel beyond number 2. And I know they have had multiple installments of the Gran Turismo. And I'm like, I'm a little intrigued. If it's shown at a reasonable cost, because there are some movies that I think, do I want to watch it in IMAX? Like, I still am not sure about Oppenheimer. But, again, there I go rabbit trailing. But I just wanted to make a point about what Ripper versus Pledge to the readers. And I hope that continues. They feel as though, like, we want to put something out there for you guys. And it goes back to my exposure to, especially team sports. Eric Davis, I don't know if he's still doing stuff for Believe, but he always talked about if we win as a team, and if we lost, someone didn't do their job. So when it comes to Hollywood, hearing things like, if I'm in this, I deserve, no. In most of the time when athletes are holding out, it's because they're leveraging their value. And some people will say play to the contract. I get that. I'm with that to a degree. But if you've gone past the terms of your contract, yeah, especially with the way NFL contracts work, yeah, you don't know because you're one because those contract dynamics are so particular. You're not gonna see that money. There's a chance you won't. So. All right. Well, I thought I'd get a secondary thought after I finished ISOM number 1. Can't wait for number 2. Again, I'll try to finish Stealing Solo, and hopefully I won't spoil anything with that. But the only spoiler is there's installments to come, and if that franchise or that storyline is any indication, they're pretty much along the same line as Rippaverse. Like we want that level of continuity that was lost in the Star Wars sequel trilogies. All right, enough of me. Until the next installment, take care. Hope you all have a good week ahead.